Oh, hi there. Welcome to the show. My name is Mark Farzetta. This is the Farzy Show presented by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Just lovely to have you along for the ride. Oh, my goodness gracious. Here's the deal. The NBA, you know what the NBA can do with their last 2-minute report? I'll tell you what the NBA can do with the last 2-minute report. They can shove it. All right? That's as graphic as I'll get. It just confirmed what we already knew. The only surprise, it was a somewhat surprising thing, was that they actually said that Nick Nurse called timeout. Now, we saw him trying to call timeout, but they legitimized the timeout by saying that, oh, yeah, he totally shouldn't be given a timeout. Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. We'll get into the Maxey stuff, not just the fact that he was fouled twice, and the NBA confirmed what we all knew, which was that he was fouled. And my biggest thing, like the jersey grab, for whatever reason, had been not called. There had been a few jersey grabs in the game. The thing that was shocking to me was the fall. And I'll tell you why that was so shocking to me that nothing happened on that. We'll get to that. But the 2-minute report we'll get to. Tyrese Maxey's words, because last night when he won the most improved player, getting ahead of myself, most improved player, he went on TNT during their playoff coverage and said everything I would want a player in his position to say, which is we're getting over it, we're burying it, we're moving on, and now it's just about winning. It's just we got to concentrate on game 3. It's exactly what you want to hear. We'll get into that conversation when it comes to Tyrese Maxey for most improved player, as well as his take on everything that went down in game 2. Michael Kaskey-Blomain of Fansided will be joining the show today. We talked last night. We'll be airing it again today. He'll take us through his thoughts on the draft because now he is NFL editor for Fansided. So he's expanding his coverage from the NBA to the NFL. And he is still doing Sixers coverage as well for ESPN 97.3 down in Atlantic City. We'll get into that conversation with Michael Kaskey-Blomain coming up in just a little bit as far as who he wants to see the Eagles taking in the draft. We do have a report linking the Eagles to somebody they could trade up for. This is an actual report. It's not like the one we were making fun of yesterday where it's, I don't know, we have a general manager that's actually going to be, I don't know, making phone calls about trading up. Or he could stay, or he could trade back. He could trade out of the first round. No, this is a name, and we'll get to that name coming up in a minute. We also have a Phillies game that we have to talk about from last night. The crashing halt is the phrase that comes to mind. Crashing halt. 8-1, Phillies lose to the Reds. If you called me last night on Locked On Sports Philadelphia doing the post-game coverage there for the Phillies game there on the postcast, crashing halt. And you know that now we only talk about depressing things. That's the unfortunate thing. We only talk about depressing things when it comes to the postcast, whether it's the Sixers losing game 2 the way they lost game 2, or it's the Phillies having Trey Turner's hit streak snapped, having their win streak snapped, and what could have been 7 consecutive games of at least 6 innings of work from your starting pitcher, allowing no more than 2 earned runs. I'll say this about that Christopher Sanchez fella. At least he only surrendered 1 earned run. You could say that. Was the defense great behind him? Defense was putrid behind him. 3 errors in last night's game if you didn't watch it. And they only got uglier. Yeah, quite literally. They only got uglier. There was the Pache throw off Stevenson's back. So that was like, that happens, There was the first off, there was the Edmundo Sosa play in the first inning. And then there was the Stevenson throw. It hit Stevenson in the back from Pache. So Sosa had the error. Pache had the throwing error. And then Alec Boehm couldn't extend. Was it a great throw by Trey Turner? I thought Trey Turner had a second more time going back and watching it. He did not. But Trey Turner has a nice little play there in the 3rd inning, I want to say it was. And fires the first. Gets past Alec Boehm, not extending, 2-run score. We're having fun. We're all having fun here. But yeah, Christopher Sanchez only goes 3 innings, throwing 74 pitches to get through those 3 innings, and allowing 5 runs, only 1 of them earned. So, crashing halt. Trey Turner last night, Kyle Schwarber were a combined 0 for 8. Schwarber did work a walk, which was fun. And they also had 5 strikeouts between the two of them. So we're all having fun. We're all having fun here with our beloved Philadelphia Phillies. So we'll get into that conversation as well on today's program. Let's start it off with Tyrese Maxey because I need to get this off my chest here. First off, the pool report comes out, all right? And it states that not only was Tyrese Maxey fouled not once but twice, it also states that Nick Nurse should have been awarded a timeout. Now, if they would have called a timeout or they would have been fouled, let's go in the case that he's fouled. They're in the bonus. So he gets foul shots out of that. I refuse to say the refs cost him the game. Now, if you go by the urgency of the situation, I understand why you would feel like the refs cost him the game. But until they get anybody else scoring, until they get anybody else trying to help out Tyrese Maxey or Joel Embiid to try to win a basketball game, the refs aren't going to do anything for him. Did the refs make mistakes? Absolutely, they made mistakes. My biggest thing was not the timeout. My biggest thing, and this is coming from someone who was a referee for 10 years, okay, into high school, all right? Certainly not the NBA, certainly not college, but it's the exact same thing when you're talking about a player falling down. When a player falls down and there's contact, and the contact causes the player to fall down, you got to call that contact. And if you don't call that contact, well, then you better call a travel. And you know what happened? Neither of those things happened. So the officiating crew last night obviously made a mistake. I believed and I didn't hear anybody else bitching about Josh Hart. I heard everyone talking about Jalen Brunson pulling the jersey. Yes, that should have been called too. But the most egregious thing that shot flares into the air as to a call needed to, had to be, should have been called was Tyrese Maxey hitting the ground. And that was Josh Hart pushing him to the ground. Now, was he throwing his hands out there, literally pushing him? No, but he knocked him over, which if you're not going to call that, you got to call the travel. Because when he hits the ground, the ball is still in his hands, and then it comes out. If you weren't going to call the timeout, you weren't going to call the contact, then you got to call the travel. Now, I would have lost my mind if they would have called the travel. So fortunately, they didn't call that. Not that it really matters because it still would have been the same outcome with the Knicks getting the ball again anyway. But the way it shook out was pathetic. And that's how you knew that the refs were in over their head in that situation. So if you're not going to call the Brunson foul where you're pulling on his jersey, well, then you better call the contact on Josh Hart, which they did not. When I went back and watched it again after the poll report came out, one thing I wanted to see was the baseline referee who's counting the inbounds pass, right, from Lowry. And I watched that play, and he's standing right there, and he's looking right at the contact. The other thing that you have to watch for is the impact of the foul. This is getting into the weeds a little bit maybe as an official, but the impact of the foul. Was there an advantage gained? Brunson tugs the jersey, which immediately does not allow Tyrese Maxey to complete his pursuit of the basketball. So Jalen Brunson hinders the pursuit of the basketball. Then on the Josh Hart call, or non-call rather, on the contact, he knocks Tyrese Maxey over. No call. So if you watched that play out last night and went, that's not right. Well, congratulations, you know ball. All right. The other thing is that drives me crazy is, okay, the timeout, fine. But of all these three things going wrong, and the NBA admitting that these three things went wrong, what now? What now? I'll tell you what now. Nothing. Yes, you're right. We were wrong. Mi scusi. Good luck in game 3. That's what this is. I found myself, after the report came out and I was looking at it, I found myself being more pissed off. Because you guys heard me yesterday. I wasn't blaming the referees. I was talking more about how Buddy Hield needs to hit threes, or Kelly Oubre needs to step up the way he did towards the end of the season, right? The regular season. I was talking more about do you need to go a little bit deeper in your bench if you're Nick Nurse? Do you have to have other guys coming off the bench trying to give you a little bit of a spark? I wasn't talking about the referee. I mean, I acknowledge that they were terrible. but I'm not looking at it as first and foremost as to why they lost the basketball game. So watching all that play out last night, or 2 nights ago, it was frustrating as all hell. But when I was talking about it yesterday, I wasn't number one focused on the referees. Now I'm number one focused on the referees, and I'm pissed off because you just told me that we were all right about what happened, and now nothing's done. Is this like, can it be like baseball where the game's under protest? We're filing a grievance. Okay, cool. I filed a grievance with the role players of the 76ers. The Sixers file a grievance with the NBA. The NBA comes out and be like, you're totally right about everything. But anyway, good luck in game 3. Great. Grand. Thanks. Now I'm more pissed off because you've acknowledged the mistakes, but now nothing changes. What's the point? To just validate our feelings? I guess. So now if the Sixers do end up getting swept out of the playoffs, we'll be like, well, at least we were right about game 2. We were robbed. Crucial point in the game, other than Dante DiVincenzo hitting that 3, we could have had Tyrese Maxey the other way with a couple of free throws there. That would have been a better outcome. He had the opportunity to get to 36, then 37 points for himself, which would have been great. I don't know. Am I the only person that found himself more pissed off after the last 2-minute report came out? Because I was still pissed off because it was just so blatant. Am I blaming the referees more than I was? No, but I'm just more pissed off than I was. And now as far as 76ers redemption goes, I got to wait one more day. One of the other things I caught myself thinking about here was Joel Embiid's words of, we're going to win this series. We're going to win this series. All that. He didn't guarantee it by any means. It's not a Joe Namath moment. It's not a Mark Messier moment. Another historic game at the Garden, right? It's not that. But I really want him to be right. Because, and I went into this a little bit after game 1, this guy wants to play and this guy wants to win. I know we focus all the time on the he's glass and Joel Embiid's always hurt, or what's the next injury going to be? It's always something with Joel Embiid, and we've certainly recapped his physical ailments enough over his playoff career. But the guy really wants to play. The guy really wants to win. And to see him fight through this injury, come back as fast as he did, get back to an extremely high level of play, not necessarily 35 points per game, MVP caliber, but now you're seeing him play in the playoffs over 40 minutes. Now you're seeing him play in the playoffs where he's getting double-doubles for you. He's getting over 30 points for you. He's become, that key target for you offensively again, and then some. Look, I'd love to see him come up with more clutch rebounds in the fourth quarter. That is really breaking it down to the nitty-gritty. But, man, where's the help? To go back to my point yesterday, you have a whole team here. You have an 8-man rotation. Okay, not necessarily a whole team anymore, but you have other guys on this team that see their star, their superstar, their MVP struggling, and they're just looking around being like, well, who's going to step up? And nobody's doing that. It's Tyrese Maxey, obviously, and it's Joel Embiid. And after that, man, there's a huge drop-off. For me, and I'll get into this with Michael KB, but for me, Kelly Oubre has been the biggest disappointment of the first 2 games of the playoffs. This was a guy that ended the season like he was going to be that third scorer, that legit third scorer, and scoring in a timely fashion, in a time where the third quarter of game 2, where Tyrese Maxey just vanished from the planet. That would be a perfect opportunity for a guy like Kelly Oubre to get his 10 points, to hit a couple threes, to have a couple of sparking plays where he drives to the basket and gets the N1 and all that. Didn't happen. If this is going to be the way the series is going to play out, with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid just doing their thing and nobody else doing theirs, then this will be a very quick series, and you don't have to worry about struggling through a second round of the playoffs. So there you go. You can't get bounced out of the second round of the playoffs if you don't make the second round of the playoffs. Okay, anyway. Let's talk about something a little bit more optimistic when it comes to your 10-9-8 76ers. I need to do a little bit of an ode to Tyrese Maxey. Yesterday, he was named the most improved player in the NBA for the 2023-2024 season. You see the numbers right there, 25.9 points per game, 3.7 rebounds per game, 6.2 assists per game. Here's my ode to Tyrese Maxey. Much like we have seen the Hertzian leap going from year one as a starter to year two as a starter, just like we have seen Alec Boehm's improvement on the third base bag, Tyrese Maxey has been right there every step of the way. And I can't remember a time in the history of Philadelphia sports, at least for as long as I've been around, including my life, okay? I can't remember a time where not one, not two, but three players showed this kind of drastic improvement. And the thing that's really wild with Maxey is that I feel like he has just been given these opportunities. And they have fallen, some of them have fallen in his lap, but he doesn't earn the next opportunity without the hard work, the dedication that he has to his craft. And Taryn Hatcher told a story during the broadcast the other night about Tyrese Maxey getting his work in during the offseason. And his schedule was off from Joel Embiid's, and whatever, that happens. But when Joel Embiid went for his offseason workouts, and I believe it was with Drew Hanlon, Maxey went back for a second run just to get his timing down with Joel Embiid. So when the season started, they were off and running. No hiccups, no problems. And that's this year. And then I go back to after his rookie season. I go back to Tyrese Maxey, and not that Doc Rivers gave us much, old Glenn Rivers there. Not that he gave us much, but one thing he did give us was Tyrese Maxey calling him immediately after the season was over. So they lose to the Hawks. And Tyrese Maxey is calling Doc Rivers saying, where do I go? Where's my workout? What's my schedule? What's my regimen? What do you want me working on, coach? And Doc Rivers had to tell him, go on vacation. Get away. Go on a vacation. Enjoy yourself. And then come back to the work. Like, I respect the hell out of that, because that's a guy that's not going to let his talent be wasted. That's Tyrese Maxey. I'm not going to let my talent be wasted. As the old saying goes, from the movie Bronx Tale, there's nothing sadder in life than wasted talent. And Tyrese Maxey, he'll be damned if he lets his talent be wasted. Everything that we ask of our athletes and our players is about dedication and getting the most out of their talent. That's why we see a guy that's, talented, but he's not an MVP. That's why when we see him jumping on the floor for loose balls, or in baseball, busting it down the first baseline, or playing to the whistle in hockey or football, that's what we love. That they are not shortchanging us any ounce of talent they have in every fiber of their being. Like, that's what you love. That's what you respect. And Tyrese Maxey is exactly like that. You see him throughout his career go through all the stuff with Ben Simmons. You see him go through the stuff with Doc Rivers, maybe not getting as many opportunities, then earning more opportunities. You see him go through the stuff with Joel Embiid missing time with injury. He just continues to get better. Specifically, you knew he was an aggressive player that would attack the basket. You knew he could pull up and shoot, but his mid-range game is expanded to three-point range. The step-back game has improved immensely. James Harden certainly was rubbing off on him as far as that went. Then his aggression to attack the basket got even better with James Harden being here. And that's another thing I'll credit James Harden for, is really encouraging that from Tyrese Maxey, considering how much Maxey looked up to him. The fact that they worked out together in the offseason. Same thing with Joel Embiid. There's everywhere you look with Tyrese Maxey, there's work. And there's dedication to his craft. And you know what that means? You know where that gets you? It gets you acknowledged here. That's what it gets you as the most improved player in the NBA. Now go out there for your next trick, Tyrese Maxey, and go ahead and win an MVP award, why don't you? That'd be the next best thing. I also loved what the Sixers put out there yesterday as well. I thought this was pretty cool. For the people on the podcast, it's the evolution of man chart, but with Tyrese Maxey raising up to the rim. Also like that the Sixers got a City Connect jersey in there. The Sixers red, the Sixers blue, the Sixers white, and another City Brotherly Love. Yeah, City Connect jersey as well. So there you go. Good job by them. Love everything about it. And also, if you look at Tyrese Maxey's numbers in his career, you just see those growing and growing and growing. When you talk about the window with the 76ers, I know that the window is feels pretty definitive when it comes to Joel Embiid. Maybe one more year after this one. But Tyrese Maxey gives me hope that window for the Sixers' opportunity to win a championship is not slammed shut after Joel Embiid's gone. Tyrese Maxey gives me hope that the Maxey window will then get open for the 76ers. And to think, by the way, he's only 23 years old. That's something I always have to remind myself. He was born in 2000. Jeez. But looking at his career, the points per game is, it's the most obvious thing, but damn. Rookie year, 20 years old. 8 points per game, jumps up to 17.5 points per game, jumps to 20.3 points per game, and then this year, 25.9. And an all-star. He finished 6th in the most improved player rankings in 2021-2022, his sophomore season. Finished 6th, and then this year wins it. You love to see it. You absolutely love to see it. So good for Tyrese Maxey. Keep on doing your thing, man. Keep on doing your thing. We made fun of, and I know a lot of people want some draft coverage here. We got plenty of that, but Tony Pauline, NFL writer, put out a story yesterday saying that the Eagles are interested in Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo, cornerback. If you watched any of the combine, if you followed any of that, or you just been following the prospect numbers and all that stuff, ran a 4.33 40 at the NFL combine in Indianapolis. 6-foot corner. Not afraid to be physical, but he's known for his speed. He's known for his quickness. He's known for being just about the best draft prospect that you can have. If you're looking at the cornerback position, top rated. So Tony Pauline put it out there after the report came out of the Eagles making phone calls to see if they could trade up in the draft. He puts a name on it and says that the Eagles are trying to trade up to get Quinyon Mitchell in the first round. What it would take, picks this year, picks next year. You're not trading James Bradbury. I don't think that's happening. But just to have a name is a big thing. If they actually draft a corner in the first round, I will be surprised. Pleasantly surprised, because I think that's their biggest position of need, and there's talent available. So those two things mixed together is a pretty good thing. But that's the name that a lot of people are focusing on right now. He's ranked above Terrion Arnold out of Bama, and Nate Wiggins as well. So that's the guy that apparently the Eagles are going to be targeting in this draft. More power to him. More power to him. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll get to the Phillies a little bit later, but as of right now, I want to make sure we get our friend Michael Kaskey-Blomain in here, who's joining us right now on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line to break it down when it comes to all things Eagles, the upcoming draft, and the Philadelphia 76ers. As when we talked to Michael Kaskey-Blomain yesterday, the pool report had just come out. The last 2-minute report had just come out. So here's Michael KB on all things Eagles and Sixers.
Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. Oh, first off, congratulations. I know personally I reached out to you and said, hey, congrats on the Eagles coverage there with Fansided. How's that going for you?
It's going well, man. I really enjoy being able to obviously cover the Eagles, cover the NFL. I've always been a huge Eagles fan, so it's nice to get to apply the knowledge on a professional level while still getting to do, like you said, the Sixers coverage, which has been limited physically because of this leg injury, but still I've been watching as much as possible, obviously.
Yeah, we were talking before I hit go on the old record button there. Go ahead, tell the people you're playing injured, man. You're playing hurt. What happened? Little ACL tear?
Yeah, been on the shelf since the end of January. Full Achilles tear. Men's pickup basketball league. Going up for a rebound. The leg didn't cooperate, and been on the mend ever since. So I can kind of commiserate with some of these NBA players that I've seen in recent years go down with the injury. Now I can give a firsthand perspective.
Yeah, that'll be great for your first-hand perspective for your next writing piece on just the ACL injury. It's simple as that. I'm sorry. I just learned that before we went on here, so I am sorry to hear that. But as far as the NFL coverage goes, of course, I needed to talk to somebody that could talk a little bit about the NFL draft with me, and then I'll, of course, talk about the 76ers and what's going on in this first-round playoff series with the New York Knicks. But first, let's talk about the NFL draft. I always ask this question in this manner because it covers both bases. What do you want to see the Eagles do? What is your desire? And then what is your prediction? What will Howie Roseman and the Eagles do in the upcoming draft Thursday night in the first round?
Always impossible to predict what Howie's going to do, Mark. I think we all know that. I think he's probably wheeling and dealing behind the scenes right now. I think for me and a lot of people, obviously coming off of last season, we wanted to see, the defense addressed in the draft as a priority. And especially after the moves that we saw them make in free agency so far, obviously they did make some nice additions to the defense. Bringing back CJ in the secondary was nice. A couple upgrades in the linebacker area. But I think, obviously bringing in Saquon, they shored up the wide receiver position a little bit with Campbell and Parker. So, I think offensively they're really set. I really want to see them break this streak. I actually didn't realize this. I saw this stat the other day that since Howie's been the GM, they haven't taken a player in the secondary in the first round of the draft, whether that's a cornerback or a safety. I think this would be a great year to break that streak. There's a lot of good cornerback prospects on draft boards. And I think, if they stay at 22 or even if they move up, I think I'd like to see cornerback probably be a priority, followed closely by linebacker, as the two probably the main positions of need that I think they really need to hammer and capitalize on in this draft class.
Wow. So you and I are on exactly the same page. If I was to sit next to Howie Roseman in the war room, so to speak, and he would just say to me, "Hey, Mark, what do you think here?" I'd be like, "Oh, dude, you got to go corner here. You got to take a corner in the first round. Linebacker would be in the second round or maybe late in the first round, depending on what goes on there." I just don't think it's going to happen. My desire does not match my prediction. My prediction is they go offensive lineman. What way are you leaning as far as your prediction goes here with Howie in that first round?
I'm gonna tailor my prediction to what I hope to happen. And I think there's so many good secondary players in this draft, and the line's always important. I definitely think that's going to be addressed late in like the later rounds. But to me, I think you go a high end cornerback, in that first pick. I know that's what I said I want to see, but I think part of it is what I think is actually going to transpire on the draft day. We'll see if that what happens, but I think it would be really nice. I mean, you got Slay, you got Bradbury, both getting up there, obviously in age, maybe past their prime. And I think you really need to supplement that position with some young guys while those guys are still here. So you don't need to thrust the rookie corner immediately into a starting full-time role, but you got to play behind those guys and kind of transition them into a thing for the future. I think that would be wise. That's my prediction and what I would like to see.
I've talked to a lot of different people about James Bradbury and what the future holds for him. Are you of the school that he does come back, or do you think he'll be just a flat out cut, released player by the time they start, OTAs?
Great question. And I think part of it does depend on how this draft shakes out. I think if they do land a high end cornerback and they feel like they can save that cap space and that money by parting ways with him by that date, they would do it. If your prediction and what a lot of people I think they're going to address the line early on, if that transpires and they don't end up picking a corner till one of the mid or later rounds, something like that, I think you have to bring him back just based off the lack of other experienced guys on the depth chart at that position right now. I know he was down statistically last year. 2 years ago, I thought he was pretty solid. I think you split the difference. He's obviously not, as good as probably he once was, but I don't think that maybe he's as bad as we saw last season. There was a lot of issues with that defense, new coordinator. I don't think he'll be as bad as, so I've seen some people make it out to be. So my guess is he'll be back if I had to, put a bet down either way, but I wouldn't be shocked if they went the other way and tried to save that cap space.
When it comes to the cornerback position in the draft, is there one guy that really jumps out to you that would make you the happiest if he all of a sudden was wearing midnight and Kelly green?
I like Mitchell out of Toledo a lot, based off what I've seen in terms of going back and watching some of the film on him and covering the draft. I think he would be a guy that could potentially come in almost right away and contribute. Is he going to be there at 22? Probably not. After that, you start to look down. Arnold out of Alabama is a nice pick. Wiggins out of Clemens. I always want to say Andrew Wiggins because that name's just like ingrained in my brain. I think
Sure.
it's Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. And there's like a few other guys up on that seem to get really high marks on, a lot of these draft boards. So to me, I think there's a lot of options, but Mitchell or Arnold out of Alabama to me would be guys that you could potentially plug and play, almost right away next year.
Are you, as far as the linebacker spot goes, maybe late first round, second round, are you a Edgerrin Cooper guy? Everyone seems to be Edgerrin Cooper. Where are you at there?
I like Cooper. I mean, if he's there, I certainly wouldn't complain. I think it would be, it also depends, and you said, on where they would end up picking in the draft. If he's there, I would like him. The kid out of UCLA, Latua, I don't think he's technically a linebacker, but he's a guy that could, be a solid edge rusher that they need, especially after parting ways with Hassan. So to me, especially with linebacker, the name isn't even as important as the fact that they're just addressing that position, because it seems like something they've been so allergic to doing in recent drafts when it's been clearly needed. But I would say if they don't go in the first couple rounds there, I think that would probably be how they would go.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Let's flip it over to basketball because there's so much to break down here. Things that we already know, things that we'd like to see when it comes to those 10-9-8 76ers here, Michael. Put these in order for me as far as the blame. Let's just talk game 2 for now. Referees, no supporting cast help, injuries. Where would you rank those from the biggest reason as to why the Sixers lost and the least reason the Sixers lost?
That's tough. Referees are close. It's. I think you got to go. Just the way I look at basketball, I'm not usually one to blame like a referee. And even looking back on that last sequence of the missed rebound, if you get the defensive rebound, there's not even the room for error for the referees to step in and make that mistake that they did. So I think the lack of, I'm going to put the blame on the Sixers first in terms of, and like you said, largely the supporting cast. No one's stepping up. Even, and you hate to even blame the finger at Joel playing what he's playing through, and that's just the story of his career. But those last couple offensive rebounds, you go back and look, he's not boxing anybody out either. And I think, the onus of the blame needs to be on the players in that situation. But with that said, I know you saw the full report. I know you saw the last 2-minute report. Yeah. Right before I came on, I knew we would get into that too. And even before that, in the first half, I was watching the game with a couple buddies, and I tweeted it out. Like, it was already a game that I was questioning how it was being officiated. Kind of, I thought it was unfairly one-sided. And I rarely preach on refs. I know mistakes get made. Usually things kind of even out. The way that game was playing, I just didn't feel like it was being called completely evenly. I felt like the Knicks were getting whistles that the Sixers weren't getting, consistently. And then to get to the end of that game, where there's just multiple mistakes and the 2-minute report, I know it's supposed to make you feel better, but it kind of just makes you feel worse. There's no, I like the transparency. I get the idea behind it to show that, hey, we admit these mistakes were made. But when you're talking about the literal difference in a series being 2-0 and 1-1, it doesn't make you feel that much better for them to come out and be like, hey, yeah, we should have given Nick Nurse a timeout. Like, yes, Maxey got his jersey pulled very blatantly when he was trying to get the inbound pass, and it should have been called for a foul. Like, all those things happened. So I blame the players first because I don't think they should have even been in that position. But the reffing was egregiously bad.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, let's just to talk about the officiating for a second there. That last play where Maxey's trying to get the inbounds and everyone's just standing around, okay? Maxey gets the ball. It's juggled a little bit. He gets his jersey pulled, and then he ends up on the ground for what I thought was a push from behind by Josh Hart. He falls to the ground. Maxey falls to the ground, loses the ball at the same time that you have Nick Nurse trying to call that timeout. Because there was no whistle, because there was no timeout, because there was no foul, I was waiting for the travel call from the officials, and there was nothing. So how make that make sense to me somehow? Of all the basketball you've watched, of all the basketball you've played, how does that make any sense?
I mean, literally, the real answer is I can't. I think at that point they're so far down the rabbit hole and they know that mistakes have been made, and to compound it and call it travel at that point when you haven't called the other obvious things that just happened right in front of you. And the timeout situation really blows my mind too. Especially, I thought there was a chance that they were going to come out in the last 2-minute report, because I'm sure you saw on Twitter there was a lot of people that were breaking it down frame by frame in terms of how thoroughly the tee was connected, if he hesitated when he was pushing the tee, and like piggybacking off that, I thought that the league was going to come out with some explanation as to why the timeout wasn't granted in fancy jargon that Adam Silver likes to use. The fact that they came out and just said that he clearly signaled a timeout that wasn't granted, I don't know. I literally don't know what to say about that. It makes no sense. Like, they were right there. It should have been called a timeout at the least. Or like you said, the Josh Hart foul on Maxey was another one in the 2-minute report that was missed that should have been called a foul. And right there you get, I think they were in the bonus at that point. So that's 2 foul shots you should get. I mean, it's just a compound error on top of another one in such a short period of time. It's unbelievable.
All right. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, like, people talk about Tobias Harris. And they're like, you're not getting anything from Tobias. You're at least getting rebounds from Tobias. And I stopped expecting a lot of things from Tobias Harris a long time ago. And I still don't understand why people bring him up so often. But for me, I don't know who your guy is, but my guy, as far as biggest disappointment through the first 2 games, has been Kelly Oubre. Because I thought Kelly Oubre was emerging as this legit third scorer, though distant third, but third scorer behind Tyrese Maxey, behind Joel Embiid. And it seemed like over the last 2 months of the season, and even when Joel Embiid came back in the final, helped the Sixers through that last stretch there, it seemed like even if Kelly Oubre only had a 15-point game, it was like 10 of those 15 points were scored at a time where maybe Tyrese Maxey was off the floor or Tyrese Maxey went cold. Perfect example would have been last night in the game 2, third quarter. Tyrese Maxey goes the entire quarter, not without just a field goal, but not without a point in the third quarter. That, to me, was the time for a guy like Kelly Oubre to step up, knock down a 3, get an N1, go on a little personal run of his own. For me, he has been the most disappointing guy outside of injuries to Joel Embiid, outside of a sickness to Tyrese Maxey. The guy I was expecting more from was Kelly Oubre. Who's your guy? If it matches, it matches. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Well, first, I just want to say it's refreshing to hear someone that has a similar view of Tobias Harris as I do at this point, because I do think it's gone overboard that, like, no matter what goes wrong in a Sixers game and however poorly everyone else can play, it's somehow always Tobias Harris's fault that he has 12 points when he's had 12 to 16 points every single game for the past 5 years. Like you said, if he is what he is, yes, he's overpaid, but you know what you're getting, and getting consistently riled up about his lack of production when honestly he hasn't been he hasn't been hugely helpful, but to me he hasn't been like the biggest issue for them by far. The Kelly Oubre thing is interesting to me because I think he's, first of all, in his defense, I do think he's been playing pretty decent defense on Jalen Brunson, which has been like a big part of his load coming into this series as like the primary defender on Brunson, who's really struggled from the field. So I do think he's been decent in the series on that end of the field, or on that end of the floor. But otherwise, I kind of just think he's shown his true colors in terms of that's really kind of who he's been throughout his career. He's a guy that some nights really looks awesome and looks like a guy that's like, wow, this could be a 24-point scorer in the NBA, super athletic, can knock down shots, can get to the rim, plays with tons of confidence. But there's a reason he's been kicked around so many times. There's a reason the Sixers were able to sign him in August for a vet minimum deal when he's still pretty young in NBA terms. He has not a reputation, but he's just been an inconsistent player, kind of an up and down and a streaky guy throughout his career. And I think, the intensity of playoff basketball, he was averaging 20 a game last year in Charlotte, which, they didn't sniff a competitive game at all. I think now you're really seeing a competitive game, and he's kind of just showing that, yeah, like some nights he looks great. He's not a guy to me that you can rely on to be your third option. I think that's, I don't want to say the mistake, but that's kind of the trap that a lot of Sixers fans fell into with the way he played throughout the regular season when he, definitely outperformed his contract and was pretty good for them in large stretches. But, Tobias wasn't that third guy. They were looking for someone to fill that void. and kind of by default, Oubre was placed into that role in the minds of many. And I just don't think he was never really built for that role. He's when they signed him, I was like, oh, he's going to be a guy that comes off the bench and can give you a spark. And that's what he's good in that role. If he's starting playing, primary defense on the other team's best player and you want him to score an efficient 20, I think that's just asking too much out of him. And to get around to your question, for me, I've just been disappointed in Buddy Hield. Not that I expected a ton out of him, but I mean, just in general, I think what a disappointment he's been since the Sixers got him. He's been a non-factor in the 2 games so far, barely playing. When he is out there, he looks tentative, slow to, react offensively, not really being able to get off his own shot, not doing much of anything. This was a guy, Daryl Morey said he thought it was the best player acquired at the trade deadline in February. Kind of smirked at the time when he said that, but we just had, he was pretty mediocre all during the regular season, and all people were like, we got to wait for him to get back with Joel. He was brought to play with Joel and play off Joel. And just hasn't been a factor in this playoff series so far. So, I mean, you could pick a lot of players on the roster, but that's kind of been the most blatant to me, just given the hype when he was acquired just a couple months ago.
Does anybody else get run off the bench? I feel like with Brett Brown, we were lied about shortening the rotation. I feel like with Doc Rivers, we were lied about shortening the rotation. And then here's Nick Nurse. Yeah, 3 guys off the bench. That's all you get. Anybody else going to get an opportunity to be that spark or be that guy off the bench that could provide that, defibrillator type of, shock to this Sixer system?
I just don't see it because this is who Nick Nurse is. This is how all the Raptors teams were. He went 8 deep. I mean, I see obviously a lot of people want Ricky Council in there, and it would be nice, but I mean, the trust isn't there. He didn't play consistently at all during the regular season. Maybe you go campaign a little bit. He played enough since he was acquired, and obviously, he's a guy that can get hot quick and knock down some shots. Maybe you give him a little bit extended run to get some more offense going. But other than that, I don't think, for as deep as people thought this team was, especially with the DeAnthony Melton injury, because that's a guy that would be playing, be like a legit part of the rotation. With him out there, and Paul Reed wouldn't even be playing either. If Embiid could play 48 minutes and Nick Nurse felt comfortable with it, Paul Reed wouldn't be playing either. He would play 7 if he could.
All right. So this is the question that everyone has then. Do the Sixers win one? Do the Sixers make? Do they do what Joel Embiid said? And, we're the better team. We're going to come back. We're going to win this series. How does this go from here on out, Michael KB?
I think from like a objective standpoint, I really think they have a chance because both these games have been, by all accounts, they should have won that game last night. Sure, they hurt themselves. The refs hurt them. They should have won that game. The first game was close. It could have gone either way. You'd think they'd come back. Subjectively, it's a little bit tougher when you're speaking as someone that's lived through 7 straight years of crushing playoff defeats, watching these Sixers teams seemingly inventing new ways to lose games. And it just, with Joel specifically, it's tough because it seems like all of these disappointments kind of like build up in his head and manifest when things are going poorly on the court in the playoffs, like the body language that people talk about. And it's just tough. Like after such a crushing loss like that last night, I like the optimism that the team displayed. I like Joel, not necessarily giving the Knicks like bulletin board material, but expressing confidence in the team, even though he didn't even look that confident when he said it. But, I like the message. So, I'm going to try to stay optimistic and say I think they do still have a shot. Obviously, you have to win Thursday night. If you go down 0-3, there's no shot. But, they won both games in New York, which is what they're supposed to do. If the Sixers can rally and answer and make it a 2-2 series, they still have the best player in the series. Maybe the second best player in the series in Maxey. So, I think they have a shot. They just need some of these other guys to, step up around them.
I'm not to endorse violence or anything, but Tom Thibodeau's just always had a punchable face, right?
Oh.
Like I'm not just, right. He's just like, I want to, like, I don't like violence, but I take a swing. I take a swing. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Just making sure I'm not crazy.
I'd watch Nick Nurse take a swing at him. That would be fun if they did that as like a side event, like a Nick Nurse
totally
like boxing match for charity or something.
Absolutely.
I'd watch that for sure.
When I saw Nick Nurse literally turn red in game 2, yelling at the official, I went, damn, that's more fire I've seen from Nick Nurse in quite a while. And I haven't forgotten about him being the head coach of the Raptors, complaining about Joel Embiid getting all the foul calls. I haven't forgotten about that, but I have not seen him that impassioned as he was in game 2 of this series. Michael KB, always great catching up with you, man. I appreciate you. If you guys are not following Michael Kaskey-Blomain, make sure you're doing so on all social media platforms. NFL editor now for Fansided, and of course Sixers coverage for 97.3 ESPN down there in Atlantic City. Michael KB, thank you so much, brother. Great catching up with you.
Thanks, Mark, man. Appreciate you.
How much fun is he? Really enjoy my conversations with Michael KB. I follow the guy on Twitter. I've never met him. And I like his stuff. And I was like, hey, dude, possible to get you on? He's like, oh, yeah, man, absolutely. So really appreciate him jumping on. He's become a regular guest of the show. And, I think he does a great job covering. I was really excited to see that he got NFL coverage. Rightfully so, because he does a hell of a job. And I appreciate that. One thing I didn't realize that he and I are so on the same page with Tobias Harris. Why are people still, oh yeah, Tobias Harris, no, what? It's Joel Embiid, it's Tyrese Maxey, and there's a huge drop-off. I was hoping that huge drop-off would only be a drop-off with Kelly Oubre. And when Michael KB was talking about people were tricked into thinking, people were buying in, chalk me up as gullible. It's written on the ceiling. I'm a big dumb idiot. I thought Kelly Oubre was going to be at least a legit third scorer on this team. And when I say legit, I'm talking about, 15 timely points. Now, I'm not talking about a guy that's going to be, 23 points per game. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just a guy like, oh, look, everybody else isn't really getting it done. Let me go score some buckets here. Nope. Color me stupid. Anyway, thanks again to Michael KB for joining us right there. Let me tell you about the MyBookie app. Download the MyBookie app to your phone. Use promo code Farzy when you create an account and get up to $1,000 redeemable cash bonus at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. You want to bet on the world of basketball, the playoffs going on right now? You could do so at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Also, you can bet on the world of politics if you want to bet on the world of politics. Primaries just going down. Oh, baby. You can do that on MyBookie, mybookie.ag. You can also bet on baseball. We'll get into the Phillies in a moment. You can do all that on mybookie.ag. Download the app, create an account, use promo code Farzy, and get up to $1,000 redeemable cash bonus at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. How about the Game Time app? One of the things I love about doing the shows there for Locked On Sports Philadelphia, the postcasts, is they're also endorsed by the Game Time app, such as the Farzy Show. The Game Time app, download it to your phone, create an account, use promo code Farzy, and guess what? You'll get $20 off your first purchase. So if you want to go to the game, you want to go to the concert, you want to go to the comedy show, download the Game Time app. Have yourself a good time. It's never been easier. It's never been more efficient, and it's never been more reliable to buy tickets to the next big event or the next big game than it is right now, thanks to the Game Time app. And here's the best thing. You want to know that you're always getting the guaranteed lowest price, right? You're not getting taken advantage of. So how about this? If you find tickets on another site or app for less money, the Game Time app will credit your account 110% of the difference. That's the Game Time guarantee, folks. They also have flash ticket deals, last-minute ticket deals, even ticket deals for an hour after the event starts. So you might miss the opening act, you might miss the middle, but you'll still see the headliner at a great discount rate at the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app to your phone, create an account, use promo code Farzy, and get up to $20 off. Get up to $20 off your first purchase on the Game Time app. How about PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs. That's PHLSportsNation.com. Let's get into the chat check and see how you wonderful people are doing on this. Oh, whoa. Me scusi. I said we get to the Phillies. Want to make sure I hit the Phillies before we get into our chat check. So, yes, everything came to a crashing halt last night with an 8-1 loss at the hands of the Cincinnati Reds. The last time the Phillies, and I've highlighted it many times, but the last time the Phillies lost a series was that second series of the season when they lost 2 out of 3 to the Cincinnati Reds. So last night, they're looking to build off a 7-0 win in Game 1 where Ranger Suarez was absolutely fantastic. Christopher Sanchez was not sharp in this game. Christopher Sanchez struggled in this game. And when the defense struggles behind a pitcher who is struggling and the offense is 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position and 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position after the first inning, you're probably not going to win that game. And sure enough, all those things came together in one big epic storm crap last night in Cincinnati. Sanchez needed 29 pitches to get out of the first inning. Not ideal. Including a 10-pitch at bat to Candelario, who worked a walk in that 10-pitch at bat. But here's how things went down for the Phillies last night. Back-to-back doubles with 2 outs. 2 out, back-to-back doubles for the Phillies in that first inning. And that was the only hit they got with the runner in scoring position. JT Realmuto doubled with 2 outs. Alec Boehm followed as the cleanup hitter, go figure, with an RBI double. 1-0 Phillies. All right. Let's keep building. Let's keep doing it. Let's go down. Let's get 8 wins in a row. Let's go, baby. And then, unfortunately, the bottom of the first inning happened. Fairchild reaches on the error by Edmundo Sosa at third base. Steer then grounds into the 1-4 force out, so at least you get 1 out in the inning. Stevenson steps up. He flies out to right. And then Candelario works the 2-out walk on the 10-pitch at bat. De La Cruz then strikes out for the second out. That was the second out of the inning. And then Encarnacion Strand gets his first of 3 hits in the ballgame with an RBI double. It's a 1-1 ballgame. Go through the second, nothing really doing there. Go through the third, and this is where the wheels fell off. Steer starts things off by flying out to right. Stevenson works a walk. Candelario strikes out, looking at a sinker. It was actually the best matchup that Sanchez had in the game. You have 2 outs, 1 runner on in the third inning. Encarnacion Strand's at the plate. There's a wild pitch from Sanchez. Stevenson takes second on the wild pitch. Then Encarnacion Strand puts a single in the left, shallow left field. Pache charges it, fires home for Stevenson, who's trying to score. The ball bounces off his back. The run scores. Still 2 outs in the inning. Runners on base still. Then, after that error, the second error of the game in 3 innings for the Phillies, there's a bouncer up the middle from off the bat of Martini. Martini ends up reaching first after Trey Turner gloves it up the middle on the second base side of the bag, by the way. Trey Turner crosses over, gloves it, hits the ground, bounces up, fires the first. Alec Boehm can't corral the throw. A little bit of a reach from Alec Boehm. Little bit of a reach. He doesn't fully extend. Inexperienced first baseman. They certainly missed the mitt of Bryce Harper at first. Alec Boehm reaches out, can't corral it. 2 runs end up scoring as the ball then drifts into no man's land. 2-run score. In the inning, it goes from a 1-1 game to a 2-1 game to a 4-1 game. Then Espinal comes up and he gets an RBI single to make it a 5-1 game. The wheels are off, but the Phillies would have opportunities in the game. 5th inning, 6th inning, and 7th inning. 3 consecutive innings where they get the leadoff runner on and couldn't do anything with it. So here's how it went down. 5th inning, bases loaded, nobody out. They walked the bases loaded. Andrew Abbott, pitching for the Reds, walks the bases loaded. Johan Rojas, with 2 runners already on, thanks to walks, steps up to the plate and has one of his best at-bats of the year. A 9-pitch at-bat. It was a 2-2 count. He fouls off a couple of pitches, works it to a full count, works the walk. 9-pitch at-bat, works the walk, bases loaded. You then have Schwarber, Turner, Realmuto coming to the plate. Top of the order, baby. Schwarber strikes out. Turner strikes out. Realmuto lines out to center field. Turner looked like he was pressing. Schwarber looked like he was pressing. Everybody going for the big swing. If they would have hit a grand slam, they would have been tied up at 5, so I get it. But the slow bleed's also nice. Make the Reds slow bleed. That would have been nice. So, unfortunately, bases loaded, nobody out. They get nothing. You lose. Then going to the 6th inning, Alec Boehm leads off with a double. Castellanos flew out to center. Merrifield reached on an error, and then Pache grounded the 6-4-3 double play. Womp, womp. 7th inning, Sosa gets hit by a pitch. And nothing doing after that. Sosa led off by getting hit by a pitch in the 7th inning. Leadoff runner on. Nothing out of that. 9th inning, Merrifield leads off with a single. At this point, it was 8-1. Merrifield led off with the single. Then with 2 outs, Johan Rojas hits a grounder to third, beats the throw, was originally called out there, review it. He gets credited then later when they overturn it for an infield single. He extends his modest hit streak to 5 games now. So he reached base twice in this game. Flips the order over. Kyle Schwarber comes up, and he strikes out. Phillies had their opportunities to make a game of it, and unfortunately they did not. Trey Turner's hit streak snapped at 11 games. Phillies win streak snapped at 7 games. And what could have been 7 consecutive starts of going at least 6 innings, allowing no more than 2 earned runs, that snapped for the Phillies as well. So it all came to a crashing halt in yesterday's game. Do I have that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Yeah. Would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Would have been 7. Yeah, 7 straight starts. But that wasn't meant to be. Phillies back at it tonight, 6:40 for Game 3. Game 3 of their 4-game series with the Cincinnati Reds as they continue this 10-game road trip. Now, let's get into the chat check. IBH, April, Fuji. Happy hump day. It is hump day, isn't it? Birds will draft a lineman. Fuji Thomas prediction. Look, my prediction is they draft a lineman. My next thing, Fuji, thank you. My guess is that they stand pat at 22 and draft a lineman. The least surprising thing would be trading up to get a lineman. My thing that I find still very possible on this Wednesday before the draft is that the Eagles do not draft an offensive lineman. The next least shocking thing. Okay. So staying at 22, drafting a lineman. After that, the next least shocking thing, trading up and drafting a lineman. Third least shocking thing would be taking an edge rusher. It's still the defensive role that they need. It's not as risky as taking a corner. That would be the third least shocking thing the Eagles could do, in my opinion. Edge rusher is what they could do. Yes, and not because I'm some Penn State fan, because I'm not a Penn State fan, but Chop Robinson certainly could be there at 22, would likely be there at 22, and they could take him at 22. Those are the three things that I'm like, oh yeah, I can totally see that happening. I would be surprised if they traded up for a corner. I would be surprised. Mo, I appreciate you being a frequenter of the show now. Thank you. Cryua River, you realize you got lucky. Like, if anything, the NBA said, "Oh, the Knicks got lucky that we messed up." That's the only thing that the last 2-minute report says. That's it. That and Philadelphia people, we know ball. We know ball, baby. Sean Kilray, good morning. Sean Gillespie, good morning. Well, I'll say good morning to you too. Good morning. I want to see a physical game for the Sixers, kind of like the Detroit Bad Boys did in the 90s, but that will never happen. Call me old school. Sean Kilrain, brilliant. I agree with you, and I like that you and I are on the same page here. I like that this is what you want to see, but you also know that's just not the way it is anymore, unfortunately. April, I'm on the same page with you guys. Same wavelength. The report just makes me more frustrated. Yeah, I agree. Michael Fulton, what's up? Kyle should have known to call a timeout in that situation. He's been in the league for 20 years. Kyle? Who am I missing with Kyle? Maxey has not been getting calls all season. It's BS. Absolutely. More on Maxey last night on TNT. So, yes, he said all the things that you want him to say. We're going to get over it. We're over it. We got to win game 3. The other thing he said was he acknowledged he should have called timeout. One of the things I was going to give Maxey a little bit of a pass on, if your jersey's being tugged, if you're being pushed to the ground, okay, it's kind of hard to have the presence of mind to be like, timeout. Timeout! Timeout! You know what I mean? It's kind of difficult to have the presence of mind to do that. Now, should he have called timeout? Yes, he should have been the one to call timeout. But while he's getting the crap beat out of him, it's kind of hard to be like, I think I should call a timeout right now. You know what I mean? So, yeah, he should have called timeout. Need our bench players to step up, says Sean Kilrain. Absolutely. Kane. What's up, Kane? I blame the organization more than Embiid for its failures during the whole process era. Kane, you just said a whole lot in one sentence, man. My biggest thing when I, tell my grandkids one day about the process, it'll be like, imagine going to a casino and somebody wins big. And then they want to win bigger, right? So they take those chips and they're like, well, hold on a second. You can't bet anymore. Give those chips to somebody else. And then they're like, but I don't really know what I'm doing with all these chips. You're fine. And that's the call Angelo's taking over. And then, all right, we're going to give these chips to Brett Brown for like 20 minutes. And in that time, he's going to be like, you know what? We don't need McCall Bridges. Let's get this Zaire Smith guy, right? And they're like, oh, no, don't do that. No, but you do it. And then it's like, oh, Elton Brand, here's everything. And then Elton Brand kind of pushes a lot of things into the middle of the table. And you end up with Tobias Harris. That's the way that goes. And then by some divine inspiration, the divine intervention, Daryl Morey gets Tyrese Maxey at what, 20? If there was any good juju created by Sixers fans saying, no, you know what? We need to burn this down to build it back up. It's Tyrese Maxey. More so than it's Joel Embiid. It's Tyrese Maxey. For fate and luck being on your side, that's what it was. Kane, Maxey is what Ben and Fultz were supposed to be. I totally agree with that. Totally agree. Jeff, what's going on? If the Sixers blow out the Knicks in Game 3, they're back in business. I expect the Knicks role players to play poor on the road and the Sixers role players to play well at home. All is fine. No worries. There you go, Jeff. Give me more of that, please. Paul Mancini, what's going on, brother? Morning, Mark. 76ers not looking good. It may be a time to get rid of the overrated President D. Morey. Who has made lots of moves every year with the same result. I like Coach Nurse. I like Coach Nurse, too. Eric, what's going on? It's time to trade Embiid, rebuild with Maxey. Look, I'm not pushing Embiid out the door, but I'm closer to that, and I'm taking calls, and that's exactly what I said at the end of last year. I'm taking calls. Like, if you got to forfeit one more year of potentially MVP level Joel Embiid, if you got to forfeit one more year, I'm doing it. And I'm pulling the trigger on a trade. But it's got to be the right deal. It's not just pushing him again. I am not pushing Joel Embiid out the door. But if you get the right call, the right offer, time for a new process. Paul, I agree with moving on from Embiid. He's never going to be healthy come playoffs after a long and meaningless 80-game season. His body, legs, knees can't hold up 35 minutes April, May, and June. Wah, wah. Slimeville Slugger, How I Feel podcast, Trade Embiid. Great name, first foremost. Trade Embiid, he can't stay healthy. And here we are. Our first-round pick has to be a starter. Well, then you're taking an edge rusher. You're taking an edge rusher or you're taking a corner. I don't think they're going to draft a right guard. That'll be your starter. So if you're saying your first-round pick, Slimeville, has to be a starter, that you're looking at edge rushers there. Or linebacker, huh? Anyway. What do we got here? Sean Killer, my prediction is they go edge rusher, best available. But my pick would be Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid, or Cooper DeJean. Jason Sehorn 2.0. I love the 2.0. I love the Sehorn reference. Paul Mancini's got a scouting report here. Wait, what was that? Wait, hold on. Where did I see it? Oh, here we go. Stay away from Nate Wiggins. Weighs 178 pounds. Great straight line speed for sure, but is too light in the pants. That can mean multiple things. To cover physical wide receivers for NFL. That's interesting. Ooh, Sixers 4.5-point favorites in Game 3. Easy money. Big double-digit win at home versus the Knicks. Jeff, I like. Maybe I'll add a little play there. Stan Bruce, Farzy, you're a made man. Why don't you pay those refs a visit? Truth be told, I can't be a made man. I genetically cannot be a made man. I know, very disappointing. I'm half Polish, so I can't be made. I got to be like Henry Hill, Jimmy Conway? Was that his name? Jimmy Conway? Yeah, Conway in Goodfellas. You can't trace all my ancestry back to the old country. Plus, you know what's offensive to me in the mob movies? Everybody's Napolitan or Sicilian. It's like no Calabrese people. Like, where are the Calabrese guys at? You know what I mean? I feel like there was one Calabrese guy in Godfather. I could be wrong. But everybody, like my father's family is 100% Calabrese. Not just Italian, 100% Calabrese. Okay. For those that don't know, for the Metagans, if you will, Calabria is the big toe of the boot that looks like it's kicking Sicily in the ass. You know, that part of Italy. That's where my dad's parents are from. I've been there. It's amazing. It really is beautiful. But no highlights. We got Stanley Tucci. That's what we got. We got Stanley Tucci. We got Danny DeVito. We have, I think, 1/4 of Marissa Tomei. And we got me. So that's not saying a lot. But yeah, I can't be a made man. Corey Littles. I love the Jim Carrey. And then, yeah. Honestly, that more comes from Garth Algar of Wayne's World fame. That's more of Garth Algar living in my head. In the back of Mr. Big's limo. Okay. Lowry. I'd love to see Lowry step up. Let's see if that happens. Mr. Wing. Hello, Mr. Wing. Rebuild with Maury. Okay. Halliburton. The Halliburton trade. Out of that, I like kielbasa and pierogies also. Half Polska also. Hey, yak shimash. I got to use more in the show. What, more Jim Carrey references? Okay, Corey, thank you. Jim Carrey and Garth Algar references. Adam, yeah, no, kielbasa, pierogies. A lot of my family, the Polish side of my family is from, the Polish people are actually from Baltimore, but the Lithuanians, because I also have Lithuanian blood. My mother's an Eastern European mutt, basically, and my father's just a hard-headed Calabrese Italian American. A lot of my family up in Shenandoah, Pennsylvania, worked at the Mrs. T's Pierogies. I don't want to brag, but I've met the president of Mrs. T's. You know, I almost call him Mr. T's. I met Mr. T, Mrs. T's Pierogies. Anyway, thanks to everybody in the chat. You guys are wonderful as per usual. Morning Rush, brought to you by Sky Motor Car. Oh, hold on a second here. Bernie Boom 68. If the Sixers win the next 2 games, the series is going to 7, and the Sixers win it all. Love it. Absolutely love it. Mrs. Swikes? Is that how you say that? In Port Richmond? Oh, Port Richmond. Heavy with the Poles. Oh, man. There's a funeral home that I would go to there for, friends of the family and all that stuff, a Polish funeral home. And they answered the door with yak shimash, and I went, oh, all right. We're getting, this is be ready. Yak, for the non-Polish, yak shimash is just very simply, how you doing? How are you? All right. And usually it's a response of Dobrze, which is good. And then Dame Bougie, if you're lucky, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, I'll keep that one in-house. Anyway, let's get to the morning rush brought to you by Sky Motor Cars, SkyMotorCars.com. The Phillies, 6:40 tonight. That's the start time. You got tonight Spencer Turnbull most likely making his last start of the season until the next guy goes down, because it's bound to happen at some point. Taijuan Walker is supposed to get it first start Sunday, so beep up, that makes sense. Yeah, that's what you got going on tonight. And Mike Lodolo will get the start for that Cincinnati Reds team going tonight. It is Mike Lodolo, right? I always want to say Lodolo, but I don't think that's his name. Lodolo. Nick, not Mike. Nick Lodolo, left-handed pitcher going for the Cincinnati Red Stockings tonight. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. My name is Mark Farzetta. This is the Farzy Show. Make sure you guys hit like and subscribe there on the Farzy Show YouTube channel, as well as the Jacob Media YouTube channel. And make sure you guys subscribe and like the Locked On Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel as well. You guys can follow me on Twitter/X to see when I'm going to be on. I'll be on again tonight after the Phillies and Reds play game 3 of their 4-game series. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. My name is Mark Farzetta. Hit like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Catch you guys tonight on Locked On Sports Philadelphia, Phillies postcast. My thanks to Michael Kaskey-Blomain for joining the show. Catch you guys tonight and tomorrow morning. See you.